It's good to be here. It's good to be with you. Thank you for joining me today. We have an exciting session. Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful, amazing lineup of incredible souls are here today. Thank you all for joining me. This is really exciting. So what I'd like to do, as usual, is start with a brief review of what is energy healing. For those of you that is just not going to be too much. And then, oh yeah, beautiful to see everybody. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. What is energy healing? And then we'll take a few minutes of silence. And then, what is energy healing, I'll explain why we'll take a few minutes of silence. And then we'll have a little prayer of gratitude, very short, and then a little review of yesterday. And then we'll dive into today. And some really beautiful questions came in. Okay, so what is energy healing? Energy healing is a way of leveraging the ability of the human mind to connect to the source of creation for the sake of accessing the infinite energy and intelligence and wisdom and resources of the source of creation for the sake of healing the body and also just improving life. Anything that needs to be better can be made better if you have more resources at hand. Part of the story is just learning to get in and to access those resources. Another part of the story is that when you do that, you increase your capacity to do so as a byproduct of doing it again. So the more a person engages in that process, and the more a person, I would say, engages with this world through the lens of how is what's happening here at the surface related to what's happening there deep inside of the source of creation. And here I have my map behind us, right? The water represents the source of creation and the clouds represent the manifest field of creation. So the more a person gets used to using that lens, the more neural connections are formed around that process. And so it's a little bit like building technique or something. People who play musical instruments, I'm an instrumental musician. So, I'm very familiar with this process since an early age that, you step into that field and you can push yourself so far, your technique so far in a particular direction, but then you step back from the instrument, take some rest, and new neural connections are formed around that experience. And then you go back in the next time and you do it again. You find, oh, I'm a little more flexible. I'm a little bit more precise with my finger positioning, or I'm a little bit more sensitive to my intonation or whatever. And so the same thing happens with energy healing, that as we're engaging with it and really using it. And, first it starts with, well, Dorothy's doing it, so I'll see what she's doing. And then, and then it goes to, well, I can do that because this is a very natural thing for humans to be able to do. I mean, look, Western medicine has been around for what? A few thousand years, maybe, like some form of Western medicine has been around for thousands. I think aren't there some records of ancient Egyptian remains showing like surgical scars and things like that? I think so. So, a few thousand years. But humans have been healing. We've been healing ourselves and our bodies for hundreds of thousands of years, million years. I don't know. Humans, I think last I read it was, we were dated out about 1.5 million years. I think that's about correct. So yeah, it's a long time we've been healing ourselves. And how have we been doing that? Part of the story is coming to understand the underlying mechanics of the healing process, because when you know how healing actually happens, like what's actually happening in the healing process on the level of consciousness, on the way the physical structure of the body interfaces with the field of consciousness and awareness, then a person becomes better at engaging that mechanism. So energy healing is about growing your ability to do that. And when challenges arise, they're no longer seen so much as, oh dear, things are falling apart, but they're seen more as, okay, an opportunity has just presented itself for me to engage, my ability to unfold the healing process and engage with that healing mechanism and unfold it in the context of this particular situation and see what happens, see how it goes, see what I can do. And if it doesn't go perfectly, that could actually be good because it shows you what you did right and it shows you what you did wrong. If you analyze it right, if you look at it and you're understanding it through this filter, then you can look at it and go, oh, I see. Like certain parts of this went right. I remember at one point, yes, my son and I were working on a little project to manifest something that it would be very unlikely to manifest, right? Like, okay, you could manifest a blue sky. That's not too hard. I'm going to manifest the sun to come up this morning. Like, no problem. But but we were trying to manifest something that was slightly unlikely, right? And it was a big issue, right? A big manifest. And so we were working on it. And then right after that, something came that was like a little tiny version of what we were trying to manifest. And it was exciting because it was like, oh, it sort of worked. I mean, it didn't work perfectly, but it was a validation that we were on the right track. And so you'll have experiences like that. And it's fun, actually, because this is utilizing the laws of nature that are already with us in this world. They're already the laws of the universal cosmic laws under which we live anyway. So why not understand them better, right? Why not know them well enough that we can engage with them from the level of our consciousness to get nicer effects in our life and in our world. Okay, so that was a little bit elaborate description of what is energy healing, but anyway, I hope I was okay. And let me open my question and answer box here, because if we're doing questions and answers, let's keep that up today. You guys all have a question and answer box, and you're most welcome to shoot some questions over. All right, so the moment of silence. Why the moment of silence? Because the silent source of creation is the resource that we draw upon for energy healing. So in other words, something goes wrong. And instead of thinking, from my individual limited perspective, I would like it to be resolved this way. Instead, one does more of a letting go and says, well, I will now take recourse to the source of creation and see what source would like to do with this. Let's see what, from the perspective of divine being, from the perspective of all comprehensive universal consciousness, what would be the best solution to this problem? So, and when you pick that solution, you get the resources of being will back that up, right? So, okay, so we're going to take a few minutes of silence, and then I'm excited to dive into your questions, also give you a little review of yesterday. And yeah, we're going to have fun. Okay, I'm going to ask you to close the eyes. Don't mind the time. After about 3 minutes, I will ask you to open the eyes. Take time to open the eyes gently and slowly, because coming out slowly helps you bring that silence with you. All right, let's close our eyes. Thank you. Take a moment before slowly opening the eyes. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything. Thank you for being all of us and all of this big universe. Thank you for being the connection between the field of unmanifest being and the manifest field of creation. Thank you for our hour together, that we may use this hour in the most valuable, meaningful, helpful, efficient way. And thank all of you for being here with me and being in my life and giving me the opportunity to sit with you in this way and to share all of this knowledge and healing time and energy and everything. It's such a pleasure. When I was in the silence with you, I thought to myself, oh, has there been a more beautiful moment in my life ever? Maybe the moment I birthed my children. maybe that supersedes. I don't know. But I mean, this moment was so sweet. I am so grateful. Thank you. Okay. So what happened yesterday? Well, we talked about past and future life. We talked about past lives quite a bit. We talked about between lives quite a bit. There was a nice healing for people getting sick around this time of year. That was very nice at the end. A question came in from California. So grateful for you for that. The main point that I think that I would like to review from yesterday is that working with past lives in the context of energy healing is less about curiosity seeking and more about the mechanics by which awareness of past lives, particularly what would be considered like seeds of karma and seeds of illness or troubles or challenges that we face now, can be embedded in times distant enough past that we may or may not have a really clear recollection of it. And in the healing process, what happens is one goes to the root or the seed of the problem in order to eliminate it entirely. And that can mean uncovering that seed from some past time. And often the healing of the seed, and I don't know if I talked about this so much yesterday, but the healing of the seed itself will essentially involve a process that's very similar to what I do when I meet with people for private consultations, which is guiding a healing for them, but that they're actually doing the healing for themselves. But I'm kind of helping to shine light on it and bring perspective and, help them understand their experience. And one does something very similar to that with one's own past life, with one's own soul in the past. So what happens is in energy healing, we create a loop of consciousness from the present time into the past time when the trauma occurred. When I talked a long time yesterday about trauma and overwhelm and what does that actually mean? What do those seeds of imbalance really look like? And so how you can recognize them and because of their structure and makeup, how to approach those seeds so that they are healed through compassionate transformation. I think we spent some time talking about how nature doesn't really like to destroy things. Nature's making everything, right? This source of creation down here just makes everything in our universe, even like horrible things. The worst things also came from the source of creation. So the source of creation doesn't necessarily feel like it wants to just eliminate all those things or bad things. What it does is it works with them. It cultivates change in the areas where suffering is in order to eliminate the suffering, but not necessarily to eliminate the whole structure. After all, we learn a lot when we're not comfortable, right? Right? A person seeks answers when they are not feeling well. And so naturally, the experience of not feeling well has its place on this earth and has a place in our lives. And the principle here is to position oneself so that those types of experiences become more oriented toward promoting an evolutionary effect for you in your life, and less oriented toward just suffering, needlessly suffering. So we talked about that quite a bit. One point that I didn't make yesterday, I'm going to make a few little points that I didn't make yesterday, but I wanted to be sure to bring out. One of them is that a lot of people feel that if they're having suffering in their past life, or like if they did something, they're having suffering in this life because in the past, they were like a mean person. Like maybe in this lifetime, say somebody steals something from you. So you might think, well, maybe I stole something from somebody else in a past life, and so I'm just getting my just desserts. I have found in more cases than not, that's not actually what happens. And I think I touched on it briefly yesterday, saying that when you have a victim and a victimizer, that those two individuals in that dynamic relationship are actually learning very, very different lessons. So what the victim learns is they learn to interpret their experience from a more spiritual perspective. The more suffering is involved for the victim, the more their awareness is driven inward to the source of creation. It's forced almost. They're forced to let go of stuff. They're forced to reprioritize everything. So what will more likely happen is that if you are suffering through a particular uncomfortable experience in this lifetime, the likelihood is that you went through something almost identical to it in a past lifetime, and you work through part of the lesson in the last lifetime, and now you're having to work through the other part of the lesson in this lifetime. And that will happen because the experience that's initiating the lesson is so uncomfortable that that it overwhelms the nervous system, the previous incarnation's nervous system. And so only part of the lesson is able to be learned. And we talked a lot about the relationship between the nervous system and the experience of overwhelm, and how these stresses come up and how they are processed in a way which is actually good for evolution. So anyway, those topics are important and were covered. And I just wanted to make that point because I think a lot of times we feel bad on ourselves, right? Like if something's happening, like I said, like if somebody steals something from you, you think, oh, well, I was probably a bad person in a past life. And I stole from them. I probably stole from that person in my past life. So they came in there going to steal from me in this lifetime. I find it's almost never a one-for-one correlation like that. Very, very rarely, because what? If somebody stole from you in a past lifetime, they have some lesson, some karma they have to go through with that. And you don't have to go through that karma. You didn't do anything bad. If you were the one who was stolen from, you didn't accrue any bad karma. You were nice. And so if you were stolen from and it was a really big pinch and you felt that, what your loss was so great and you felt so exploited and victimized and abused and going through that process with that physiology, which wasn't as refined as the one you have now. That's another thing we talked about, is how the physiology refines from one lifetime to the next. If, then what happens is you come at the lesson again, now in this lifetime, with a finer, more delicate physiology, with a more sensitive, more aware physiology, and more wisdom and greater access to the resources of being, and, just from a better position. And you get to go through the lesson again and hopefully score a higher grade on that lesson, something like that. So we keep going to the same lessons again, and scoring a higher grade each time until we score a grade which is essentially high enough that we and the source of creation, or the divine being, are all satisfied with that outcome. Then you can move on to another lesson. Oh, so it is. All right. So I think that's a good review from yesterday. Let's look at questions. Oh, so one lady's saying that she fell into a deep, deep sleep in the middle of the webinar yesterday. And I just want all of you to know, anybody else ever fall asleep during a webinar? Yeah, probably a lot of people, because, see, hands go up. Yeah, because we listen more completely. We process information and integrate new knowledge more completely from the perspective of sleep than from the perspective of waking. It doesn't mean that you weren't listening. It just means that you were integrating at a very deep level, and that is beautiful. So never feel bad. I never feel bad if I look out and I see people drooling down their front or something. It's really fine. It's really fine. Thank you for being with me. Snoring away. Here's a question. We learned that we can heal the past from our current position. Yes. Is it then possible to also evoke our future selves? Yes. To connect and help us now? Yeah. Can we do such a thing? Heck yeah, that is a great question. And it's so true. And let's actually look at the mechanics of how that happens. By understanding the mechanics of how we help ourselves in the past, we can also understand the mechanics of how ourself in the future helps us now. But there's some little variations and differences, because the past got locked into place, right? Like the past is the past. What happened actually happened. There, of course, are, even from the perspective of looking into the past, there are many virtual pathways of things that almost happened or might have happened, or happened in a person's imagination but didn't really happen, things like that. And those sometimes need to be healed too. But with the future, it's all virtual. It's like a field of all possibilities. So the mechanics are a little bit different working with the future self than with the past. So let's just dissect that a little bit. Have you ever had the experience that something happens and it's kind of like a small thing? It's not a really big thing, but when it happens, you react and respond to it as if it's like, as if it happened to 100 times, or if it was 100 times more intense than it actually was. I don't know if that's clear, but like, for example, children who grow up in dysfunctional homes often will have the same abuse leveled upon them many, 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 many times. So the first time the abuse comes, the system's a little more, throws it off a little more easily. And the second time, the hurt of the first time and the hurt of the second time combine together, and it hurts a little bit more, but you can still throw it off, right? But the third time it comes, you have the hurt from the first experience and the hurt from the second experience and the hurt now from the third experience kind of all combined together. And even though the actual third event was a small event, it feels 3 times bigger, if that makes sense. So certain types of of discord or discomfort can be like that. Oh yeah, we have a hand raised there. Yeah. Yeah. So it goes like that if the body was not able to completely rise above the experience on the first go or the second go. And if a person's in a situation where they're having to face the same stress over and over through like a marathon, over a long course of time, it can feel like carrying a very, very heavy burden. So that's why we go back to the first moment that the experience first came. Because if we can pull it out from the first moment, then it's like unraveling a thread, like pulling the mother thread out. So just with our awareness, what we do is, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, we access the past lives through the astral body. So what we'll just do right now for a moment is just do a little activation and the future lives through the astral body. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our awareness into the astral body. And what I'm doing is I'm looking out into our collective, and I'm just bringing everybody's astral bodies into my focus. All of your beautiful astral bodies. And they look all sort of woven together in the web of life, right? We have kind of like a healing circle here, a healing circle that sort of stretches around the world right now. And we're all here for the same highest intention. Waking up the astral body. What does that feel like? What does the astral body feel like? It's the part of ourselves that's just connected to the whole creation. It's like, it feels almost like a tapestry or something. We did some talking about the structure and some of the laws of nature that oversee the astral physiology part of the body. And so yesterday. Now, within the context of the astral body, as this area is waking up and enlivening up, and awareness is going, oh, like I can feel my physical hand, but then like I feel my astral body. You can imagine it kind of like a toroidal short shape, kind of out and around the body, but has a lot of pliability, a lot of flexibility in it. Very stable, very flexible. Made entirely of threads of awareness. If we isolate out the threads of the astral body connected to and associated with past lives, what we get is something that looks like a big cosmic snowflake, a big celestial snowflake. And your present life is right smack in the center of the snowflake. And think of it like we think of snowflakes as flat, right? But this is more like a multidimensional snowflake. It's at least 3D, And your life is in the center of the snowflake. And you know how snowflakes have little spikes that come out. They've got like the main spikes, and then they've got little other tinier spikes coming off of them. And the past lives like to arrange themselves this way. We talked yesterday about how not so much linearly. And what that means is that certain of your past lives you're drawing upon experience from certain past lives to inform this lifetime and to guide the story of the fulfillment of your heart's desire in this lifetime. So, right, like say in each past life, okay, say you had many past, which I know you did, you had many past lives where you had a crush on someone, got a big crush. And if you add up all the crushes of all the past lives, oh, Lord, have mercy, so many crushes, what to do? So what do? You think, well, I'm coming into a life, maybe, I'll finally explore a relationship with some person that really was somebody I wanted to explore that relationship with. And so you can't choose all of them. So you have to choose one of them, or maybe two of them, but not all of them. Right? So the lifetime where that was just a crush, where the seed of desire was planted, the lifetime where the seed of that desire was planted, becomes an important lifetime for this lifetime, where you're going to finally watch that seed grow and blossom into something sweet, hopefully sweet and beautiful, and a nice love. So what it means is that some of the past lifetimes have a more significant impact on this lifetime than others, depending upon your relationship with them. And decisions of that sort, like, well, which of those crushes am I going to explore in this lifetime? Those decided in the spirit world before we come here. Sorry, my tendency is, go to the silence, but I can go to the silence with you. No worries. I'm right here. All right. So we have multiple past lifetimes. Certain of them hold seeds both of karma, of suffering in this lifetime, but also seeds of nice things happening in this lifetime. And those lifetimes sit on the major spikes that are coming out from the center hub, which is this lifetime. And everywhere there's like a node, where like another little spike comes out, like along each of those points, there are other lifetimes. So, maybe there's a major lifetime where I had a crush, and then in this lifetime, I'm actually exploring that relationship with that person. But then before that, there were other lifetimes that led up to that experience of that lifetime. So they all kind of like intertwine, and it's a very beautiful sacred geometrical form and so forth. Yeah. Okay. We heal by bringing awareness to that area wherever the seed of suffering was originally planted, and sit in sort of sacred union with our own past self. And your awareness can do this. You can find yourself struggling with a seed of illness. If there's something that's creating nothing but trouble for you here, you can go back to that and say, oh, I see myself in the past. I felt unrecognized. I felt misunderstood. And you can give yourself whatever it is that yourself of the past needed at that time. The recognition, the understanding. You fill in the blanks. And this is the way consciousness creates wholeness, right? At the time, there was a feeling of separation because the values, the nervous system wasn't able to hold on to its anchor to wholeness. And so it started to feel separated and misunderstood and unrecognized. And so by bringing our awareness back to ourself in the past, our awareness itself is the anchor to wholeness. So just by being, it doesn't really require a lot. This is not a big, heavy effort process. It's an easy process. We bring the awareness back to that point in the past where the initial feelings of separation crept in. And along with that, what crept in was a feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm insufficient, because the nervous system was insufficient. The fact is, the physical nervous system was not able to sustain connection to wholeness at that time. That happened. That nervous system, that physiology was not as refined as this one. Physiologies continue to become more refined from one lifetime to another, assuming that a person lives a life in a way that promotes that process. I mean, people can live their lives in a way that actually create more crudeness as they go along. So, there's a certain thing, there's something to be said for virtuous, moral, ethical behavior. There's something to be said for intending to live a spiritual high quality of life, for wanting to live a life according to the laws of nature. But for the most part, there is a natural refinement that takes place. And I've talked before about how the respiratory system causes that to happen. So if you breathe as a human, there will be an integration between universal self and individual self as a byproduct of breathing. But anyway, we've covered that extensively in other webinars. So, okay. Let's look. So what? We bring awareness Awareness is the anchor to being or wholeness. Wholeness brings those bits and pieces that were missing on the level of consciousness that when the nervous system basically came up short, you could say the nervous system came up short. Now, when we go back in time with our awareness and we provide the parts of the experience that we're missing for ourselves from this, and this physiology, this nervous system is more stable, right? This, in almost all cases, this physiology, present life is going to be a more evolved state than the past. We're doing it. We're doing it as I'm talking about it. So that's why it takes a few minutes. But we sit, we fill in the parts that we're missing gently, from a very deep, quiet inner space. Filling in those parts gives the nervous system an opportunity and rest. When there's rest, you pick a time when the soul is able to feel, can integrate the experience. A quiet time. I find often working with one's inner child or child self often involves going back to quiet times in the childhood. And there are lots of times when children will just be playing quietly by themselves or so. And in the quiet time, the nervous system is able to make some adaptations and adjustments. It is the quality of your consciousness in the moment that impacts the nervous system in the past and speaks to it. It informs the nervous system of the changes that are required in order to evolve past the unpleasant experience that gave rise, that planted the seed of suffering there. This is what we're doing. And as I'm saying it, I'm just looking now through our group and I'm just watching each one of us with our woken up astral bodies able to go back to those points in the past that were sore, that were hurt, and provide that comfort, compassion, mercy, recognition, love, self-love, forgiveness, gratitude. It's very beautiful. You're healing yourself. And when you do that, you uplift our world from the past. It's like pulling the world up by its bootstraps or something. Because that little shift will shift the feeling that's behind all sorts of things that go on in the past. It's powerful. Look at you doing great. There. I'm reviewing. I'm going through with you and checking in on everybody as we do this. Good. No stone left unturned. Okay. Let's talk about the future, because I missed that yesterday. And as I mentioned, the future is like a whole field of virtual possibilities going forward. And so when we're picking up threads of future self, we have options. And some threads, astral threads that go into the future, lead to really, really bright futures. They lead to really bright possibilities. And some don't. Like about half, you could say, about half lead to no success and about half lead to success. And of those that lead to success, one leads to the highest success. So part of the art of working with future self is to draw upon those aspects of yourself in the future that live at the highest level of self-expression, at the in a way in which your potential has been, is completely, fully manifested. So how do you define that? How do you find those threads? Every thread of the astral field has an energy signature with it. And that's another point I was thinking I would make for you guys about the past, which is how you can tell where you are if you're navigating through past lives, is that each thread connects to a different past life. Each various threads of the astral body connect to various past lives, and they all have flavors in them. So there are flavors that we associate with like various times in history and various locations around our world, right? Different places have different feels to them, right? So you find them. You can often, as you traverse these threads, you will become more and more sensitive to the flavors of consciousness or the feels that are in the threads. And as you do that, it will become easier to understand or to decipher out where you were and who you were with, and the time period, the location, the time period, etc. In a lot of cases, my experience is the location, the time period isn't as important. I mean, you can also, sometimes I'll douse if I'm not sure, but the truth is that what's important is it's a soul-to-soul communication that heals. That's what's important. And then once we've done the healing, you go on, you get off of it, because we don't, as I mentioned before, we don't want to dwell too much on the past, because this past is a lesser state of evolution, and we don't want to be enlivening a lesser state of evolution for ourselves in the present. We just want to be there enough to do the healing work. Okay. For the future, on the other hand, the future is a greater state of evolution. So a lot of the threads that you encounter going forward are going to be nice. They're going to be light and rich and full and beautiful. The threads all have energy signatures in them. And what you're looking for is fullness, wholeness, completeness, and the inebriating silence and bliss of being. And the truth is, there could be a virtual future that you are not going to ever experience that has a resource that you could use now. Rather than go, well, I'm only going to take this from the very, 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 very highest possible future. It's possible that there's some less than the highest possible future that has some level of experience that might be useful. I mean, I think that's entirely possible. I'm thinking of an example right away. Suppose you're interacting with a person at this time who has a life orientation that's very, very different from yours, like very different. But you want to maintain harmony and you want to maintain congenial relations. You can draw upon a future of yourself that's in the space that they're in, that you would probably never go to that future. You probably will not go to that future. But we have futures that go absolutely everywhere. And so I can draw upon my own potential to have the same sort of level or type of lifestyle and experience as my friend, even though I never would and I never will. I have a potential future, a virtual future that could be in that space. And I can draw upon the knowledge and the experience and the feelings, like really empathize. It helps me empathize with my friend, even though my friend and I are very different. And it helps me make choices and decisions and to convey myself in a way that honors and nurtures that person deeply and helps heal that person. We can heal our future self too. but more often the future self heals us. And you already call upon your future self to heal you. And I know this because you've already, from the present, healed yourself in the past, right? So it means that your past self called upon your future self to heal you. And now you're from the future point, going back and healing you to the past. And it's a byproduct of the fact that your past self was at least open enough at that time to receive and accept. So I realize it's something that past selves do a lot. The past self a lot will reach to the future for resources and wisdom and perspective and understanding. Even physical strength, even immune system support. You can draw upon resources from the future self to the present self for all sorts of things. And if, for example, I think this came up in a healing session a long time ago, that the past self, the person's past self, had something like MS, and that body was very sort of debilitated. It was very, very debilitated. And the past self with the MS was drawing upon the life force and energy in the present body. And so the present body was feeling so heavy and burdened and weighed down by the by this sort of like, it was like a leech or something, it was like, it was the past self was drawing energy off of the present self. And so it happened because it was at that point in the person's life cycles that they had the resources to heal their past self and heal the underlying issue for the MS. And so what happened was, because they were like feeling weighed down and exhausted and struggling, they went back and they healed that self that had MS and had been the body had been so debilitated, and they healed the underlying seed issues behind that illness. And then it released their body in this lifetime. So, the past lifetime was drawing that resource in, but that was good because it also drew the attention and it drew the awareness, oh, something needs to be done here. And then once it was done, things were much better, everything much better. Past and future, and all these virtual futures. And one of them is the best one. And so even though I said before, well, sometimes you can draw on resources from, some of the virtual futures, not always the best one. But I'd like to add to that the more you aim through to your highest future, the more you stabilize that particular thread, and the thread acts like an anchor that helps guide you to that highest future. So I would say, as advice to all of us, let us work with and let us stay our focus with the highest possible future. Because again, it's like any skill that you cultivate, right? You start to wire yourself up to align with that highest future. And your highest future self lives beautifully in attune with all the laws of nature. And it lives like it's just this amazing, it's an amazing resource. You can do it. It's almost as if by putting attention on the highest future self, one opens a light to the present. It shines a light into the present self. And just as say the person who had MS in the past was able to draw some physical resources from themselves in the future, in the same way, for those of us who are in our more later years, sometimes I find that I'm able to work with my teenage self and my 20-year-old self. And like, I am providing certain types of resources for my teenage and 20-year-old self. And my teenage and 20-year-old self is providing robust energy and really beautiful, healthy, balanced hormonal activity and stuff like that. So something to think about right there, that it doesn't have to be a leech-like situation. It can really be a mutual support situation. And same for you with your future self. The fact that you have enough awareness as an individual right now to know that this is even a thing that you could work with your future self puts you in a position to provide a level of, like, even just recognition and gratitude. I mean, if you look to the past, you look to the future, you take a walk, I look at the trees and the squirrels. All any of it ever cares about is recognition. Really, this is what we provide as humans within the context of this universe, is we are aware. We are aware of our universe. Our awareness of our universe is the gift that we give to our universe. It is the function that we perform in this universe that allows the divine to perpetuate its evolutionary process. We are the instruments of awareness. We are the instruments. And our awareness is pure source material. So wherever we focus it, brings wholeness. It completes, it resolves, it heals, it nurtures. You have something precious to give to your future self, and that is recognition. And when you do that, it helps your future self be an even better future self, and it brings delight. Your awareness is like a tickle, right? You put it on your future self, and your future self goes, "Oh, look at that. That's so cute." You know? So enjoy that relationship, like enjoy it and let it just be like a love relationship that's with you all the time. It can be this wonderful, nourishing, amazing, beautiful resource of fullness in your life. Keep your future self close to you as your beloved. And know that what you give to your future self in the way of recognition and understanding and appreciation and so is beautiful. It's very much appreciated. Okay, more questions coming in up here. I think I want to stop and take some from down here because there's some from last night too. Thank you for understanding about the question, which I will not say the word. Okay. Right. Okay. I think, did I answer them then? Oh, yes, there's this question. At the Big Bang, what are the fundamental three that gave rise to all other forms? So those fundamental three are so fundamental, aren't they? Let's try a different link here. I have a visual aid for you guys. Oh my goodness, it should be under S for sacred geometry. There you go. All righty. That'll do. So the three fundamental forms are so fundamental that they can be viewed from various different perspectives and thus identified in different ways based on the various perspectives. From the perspective of energy healing, we can look at them as laws of nature. And I don't recall if I think I did touch on it slightly yesterday as the knower, the known, and the process of knowing. And so we could say, well, from the angle of Vedic science, we think of these three as the knower, the known, and the process of knowing, but they're really rolled into one because they're all really knowingness, right? So it's really one thing that's divided itself into three seemingly separate parts, but they're really all just really knit together as part of the one thing. And Vedic science calls it Rishi, Devata, and Chandas. Rishi is the knower. There's a little song we sing to the children here. Rishi is the knower, Devata the knowing, Chandas is the known, together they are flowing. I don't know, I'm a very good singer. I'm a great flute player, okay, but I'm a terrible singer. But you get the idea, you know, Chandas is the known, Chandas is the known, yes. But yeah, so it's like a little song and sing to the children, you know. So that's one way of looking at the three in one. That one big ocean of consciousness down here has its kind of like resting mode, and then it has its warmed up mode, which it hasn't manifested yet, right? So it's more like resting like this, and then it's more like getting ready to pop. And between the I'm just resting and the I'm going to pop, there's sort of like a little, like it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like that. And that creates a little kind of waking up of this idea of 3 in 1 and 3 in 1 and 3 in 1 and 3 in 1. And the actual breaking into 3 in 1, I understand, tends to happen here more at this gap where it's, reading through into it. There's an element, it's 3 in 1 and 3 in 1 and 3 in 1. But then as it starts to manifest up, the three start to come up in various forms. And they come up in forms, for example, if we look at it through a religious filter, like a Christian filter, we see the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? And the Father is the knower. The Holy Ghost is the process of knowing. And the Son is the known. They're beautiful. And if we look at it from the angle of Hinduism, of course, we get these three in one values are identified at various levels. Like there's like a big level. It's identified as the three aspects of Mother Divine, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga. And then at like a more specified level, a more well-defined level, you get the three values of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But from a scientific perspective, which is why I brought up the diagram, because I like science, is I was watching a wonderful video, which I think I may have passed out to you guys before years ago. But for those of you who weren't at that time, it was just so, we'll add the link again. And that's of an interview of a physicist named Nassim Haramein. And he was with a team, I guess, who determined the weight of a proton. Now, what's really interesting about this, that he discovered, and it's in this interview, so I'll send it to you so you can see it, because it's a very interesting interview. What he discovered was that when he got down to the area of fineness of the universe, where you could do the mathematical calculations to figure out what is the weight of a proton, he found a geometrical form that was based on 3. Amazing. So I have a picture, visual aids, bam. And there we are. Oh, what's this? Yes. So here is the flower of life matrix. And he shows this. Here I am. So you don't see, we're all here. There we are. Hello. So he shows this diagram in his interview, and he says he found this structure mathematically represented when he was at the level of fineness of creation to determine what was the weight of a proton. And he realized that the entire fabric of our universe at that level is shaped like this. That's what the universe looks like. He said, even out in space, and you think space is like empty space. He said, even out in empty space, there's a fabric of this out there. So interesting, right? Okay. So we see the 3-in-1 also structure is also here. It's here. I mean, these look like sixes, but of course, sixes are just 2 3s put together, right? Anyway, it's beautiful and it's amazing. And I thought you'd like to see that. Okay, so 3-in-1. Yes, 3-in-1. So what is that 3? That 3 is a fold of consciousness in on its own nature that is so fundamental. This in Ayurveda. There's other areas in other Vedic science. The 3 gunas. The 3 gunas are considered the 3 fundamental forces that create our reality. And so you've got sattva, which is the kind of rising up to the surface energy, and then you've got rajas that kind of like sustains it and lets it kind of keep going, and then you've got the tamasic energy that causes it to deteriorate back into the source again. Fundamentals. And according to Vedic science, these 3 fundamentals, the 3 gunas, they're baked into every particle of creation. And like that flower of life matrix over there, they kind of layer up on each other, right? Like one guna is looking at another guna is looking at another like that. And as they do that, they start to create permutations and combinations of their own energies. And that gives rise to all the various physical manifest forms of creation. It's very interesting. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Ananda Maya Kosh and its function. Right. So I've kind of divided this material level of creation into looks like 6 up here and then 2 down here. Whereas the kosha system is more like a 5-layered system. And I've looked at it some, and I think there's a basic correlation. There's some fundamental correlation because we're looking at really the same structure. But because I came upon this through my own direct experience rather than coming upon it through that philosophical framework. I'm thinking, though, Anandamaya Kosh is the bliss body, right? Ananda means bliss. So I was thinking that's like the deepest. Isn't that the deepest? So, that would be down here at this. It's still manifest, but it straddles the gap between the unmanifest and manifest level of creation. And that gap is really significant because that's where all the healing takes place. When there's a transformation of consciousness, when consciousness folds in on its own nature and it reforms itself to give rise to a different seed that yields a different crop, that happens right down here because all the seeds are right down here. They're at that level of creation, right in the gap between the manifest and the unmanifest. I've done whole workshops just on the gap. So you can look back. I think some of them might be published. I'm not sure. Thank you. It's a beautiful question. How does the explanation of karma revisited with a more refined nervous system, allowing us to process a similar experience with a higher grade? Yeah, jibe with the concept of past lives, not being necessarily chronological. In other words, this present life could be after some other lifetimes. It still works the same way. It's a good question. It really is a good question. But the thing is that say my next lifetime is going to be as a Christian saint in the church in the 1800s or the 800s, the 800 AD or something. And that's going to be a more refined physiology, and it's going to be a more spiritual lifetime than the one that I'm in, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, just hypothetically. Well, then what that means is when I'm drawing upon my future lifetimes, I'm actually drawing upon that lifetime, even though it's going to occur in the past, chronologically from where I am living right now. Does that make sense? So what that means is if there's a lesson that I didn't work out in this lifetime, I might have to work out some of that lesson in that lifetime, even though it will happen in the past, chronologically from where I am. It's happening in what's experienced by the soul as a future lifetime and a more refined physiology. I hope that makes sense. And what I was realizing is, well, that makes sense. Then that actually does sort of validate the idea of parallel lifetimes. Because if you can do that, well, then why couldn't you come back in another lifetime that overlaps with this lifetime and be a teacher to yourself? Oh, you guys. Oh, you guys. I'm suddenly seeing, I'm seeing, I'm seeing Jesus and John the Baptist. I'm seeing, you know, I'm seeing the great, what, Socrates and Aristotle, is it? Yeah, Socrates and Aristotle. Plato. Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. I'm seeing them. And I'm wondering, oh, could that be? That it's really just it's a big, great, beautiful, glorious, divine folding of divine intelligence into its own nature. That opens up a lot of possibilities. A lot of possibilities right there. Okay. On that note, I mentioned yesterday that I would have a word for walk-ins too, because that's another very interesting phenomenon. When I first came across the phenomenon of walk-ins, I was like, no, I'm sorry, that just sounds crazy. But I had the profound privilege of meeting, after I had already been introduced to the concept a little bit. I mean, it sounded crazy, but it didn't sound completely impossible either. Except that the first time I heard about it was from a lady who claimed that she had multiple walk-ins, and at the moment was being her one body was possessed by two souls. So that did sound just like a little far-fetched to me. I was sorry. Forgive me, you guys. I was having a little trouble with that one. But especially because I thought the thing that made me have trouble with that concept was the idea that the living soul in the body was it was so like insignificant, sort of. It made it sound like it was insignificant. She said, well, I was already a walk-in, and then I had this car accident, and now that soul left, and these two others came in. And I was thinking, is a human life just so like nothing? Is it such a nothing that you can just be like, oh, I'll just trade souls today? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go to the store and then I'll trade my soul. No, it just seemed like such a kind of like, I don't know. I was having trouble with it. Okay. I was trying. And of course, in my job, I have to try to do these things because, like it's my job. So, but then as I would like to tell you, I had the profound privilege of making friends with a woman whose walk-in story touched me deeply touched me. Her story and the circumstances and all the little surrounding detailed facts were undeniable. It was undeniable. And the thing I think that was most undeniable about her story and about being with her was that I could feel it. I could feel the presence of the soul that was in this woman's body was such a glorious presence. It was such a great, it was such a high caliber of person. This, I mean, if you think to yourself, well, maybe that idea is, for people that are they have some kind of psychological problems or something. I have to admit, the people that have claimed to have walk-ins that I know of, they don't exhibit the typical problems that you would think of as people with psychological problems, like emotional instability or sociopathic tendencies or all that kind of thing. It's not there. There's a kind of a nice, stable, there's a clean energy. There's a very clean energy with this lady. Oh, I love her so dearly. I think she's with us actually in the webinars. Hi. Thank you for being my inspiration and my love. Anyway, such a beautiful, amazing soul with an amazing story. And it occurred to me, well, That story is so amazing. It's like way up there, along with like near-death experience types of stories, right? Because this is kind of like a near-death experience, really. And there's a kind of element of that, crossing over the veil and all that. I thought, oh, I think that story would be like amazingly inspiring. But I realized that you don't see walk-in experiences publicly presented like on YouTube or anything like that. You just don't see it. And it occurred to me that it's possible that for the people that are living that experience right now, it's probably like just too intimate. It's very intimate. It feels like something very private. And so that's why it's like that. But my friend, if you ever feel like coming out, let me know and I'll interview you because your story is beautiful. Your story brings tears to my eyes. It's beautiful. But anyway, that's all. Okay. There are probably people who've written about it, I would imagine. People have written books about it and stuff. Okay. A healing to allow us to distinguish our best, highest future oriented. Oh, yes, that's a very good idea. Yes, very good idea. So let's do a healing to connect up with our future self, that is the future self that embodies your purest, highest, most complete potential. And it starts by finding a level of deep, intimate, personal love and appreciation. The connection seems to be associated with or born on the wings of a level of self-love that is stable and rich and deep and balanced. I'm seeing that the path forward, so I'm looking at the thread. I'm starting to analyze. Okay, here's what the thread looks like. The part of your astral body that connects you to your highest self. This thread, as you check it out and you start to follow it with your awareness, becomes more and more and more balanced. Balance is the underlying theme. Balance. I mean, love draws us there, right? I was suggesting earlier that our relationship with our future self is one of just beautiful, profound love, like really a love, such a deep love relationship. But excuse me. Yeah. Looking at that thread. Oh, everybody here, everybody's astral bodies, everybody's expansion into their highest potential, their highest future potential. And awareness is gently, like trustingly giving itself to that path or that thread is marked by ever increasing balance. And of course, ever increasing alignment between individual evolution and cosmic evolution. So your future best self is the future of you that is most aligned with the future of the universe, where the universe is going. Oh, but guess what? The universe has we talked about this yesterday, has a basic game plan for the future, but it doesn't even know exactly what are going to be those details of how everything really unfolds, because it's a dynamic dialogue between creating some form, and then the form informs the source, like, oh, well, this is the point where my nervous system got overwhelmed, right? So then that informs the source. Okay, so then this is the next structure that needs to come out as a result. And then at some point, the nervous system it's more refined, so it's able to like take more, essentially. But then there's a point of I can't take any more, and then that informs the source again. So that means that even the divine is sort of thinking about it, sort of improvising as it goes to a large degree. So what does that song look like if you're improvising? What does that look like? The most perfect expression of the divine in the material form. This is the definition of the future self. the most perfect material expression, the most concise, the most balanced, the most complete material expression of divine source. Glorious, beautiful. I think there's a beautiful quote that I gave everyone 1 or 2 webinars back about from Guru Dev, where he talks about how humans are so precious and they're so beautiful because they're like balls of gold. They're like gold. But he said the gods are like gold that's been made into jewelry. so like we're like gods in potential, something like that. One of the things that I see happening here for all of us as we're looking into connection with the future self is it's paved on a path. It's paved into a path of an evolutionary pattern that repeats again, 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 again. And that evolutionary pattern involves taming the dragon. It involves the process of investing in the experiences that try you, and then finding the solution that's closest to the intention of the creator for that situation. Again, 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 again. Taming the dragon. We don't run away from the dragon because the dragon is sitting on the gold that we want. That's us. That's our essential nature, right? The gold is our essential nature. It's our truth. It's our really genuine divine expression of ourselves as the most perfect expression of the divine. So that's the gold. And the dragon is that thing that's in front of you that you don't want to do, right? That's hard to do. But you do it anyway, because it's the right thing to do. And what that does is it cultivates in the nervous system an alignment with virtue and ethical, moral behavior, right action. We could say action according to the laws of nature. But it also helps to cultivate balance. Because when we're dealing with that thing that we don't want to deal with, we have to find a balanced way to come up to it that puts us in a path that could overwhelm the nervous system. Like, that's why we don't want to deal with stuff, right? Because it's like, oh, that's going to be tough, you know? So that's why balance is one of the principles, because when we approach that issue, then we find a way to navigate through it in a way that doesn't, where we're like, you're balancing, like being sensible, for example, like, oh, well, I don't want to deal with that because that's going to overwhelm my nervous system. So you balance that against being bold enough to actually approach the thing, because you can't go to you can't take the next step on the path unless you deal with the dragon that's standing in the way. So it has to be done. And when you do, you gain gravitas and grace. This is how we grow. This is how the nervous system grows. It shapes itself around that. A little bit of stress on the nervous system, right? A little bit makes it more flexible and more stable, but not so much that it overwhelms, but enough to become more flexible and stable. And then approaching those harder issues. A lot of compassion is needed, because it's not easy to do that. That's the harder path. But healing for it. Did I get off the healing? I got into I got onto some kind of moral high horse instead. So let's see, healing to allow us to distinguish. How do we distinguish? How do we define? What we need here is a refinement of perception that also goes to heart, wisdom, or intelligence. Because this definition is not one of simply physical, material perception, but it's really a perception deep down. It's a deep inside, internal, subjective perception of what is the feel in that thread of consciousness that connects us to our future self. And as I mentioned before, the feel is you're watching for balance, you're watching for fullness or wholeness, more alignment with natural law. And from my perspective, when I do it on just a very visceral level, it's the lightest. There are lots of threads, but there's one thread that's the lightest. It's the lightest and the brightest and the fullest and the most beautiful. And that's how I define it. And I think if you're looking at a feeling level at the threads of the astral body, you will be able to see which one is the lightest and brightest and fullest and richest and most beautiful, like that. You can do it. I'm seeing heart expansions going on, and I'm seeing refinement of perception in the heart energy center. There's a big neural network in the heart energy center. And so, we perceive reality. We perceive the universe with every particle of ourselves, not just with our eyes and our ears and our nose and our mouth and our skin, but every bit of us. Like our microbiomes are perceiving the universe in their way. And that's also informing us, and like everything. It's very exciting. You guys are doing it. You're growing into this. It's very exciting. I'm so excited. I'm so happy for you. It's going to be a great tool. Okay. The 3 gunas. Yes, I talked about those, right? Is it common for future lives to be in another universe? Oh, this is a great question. Or are we mostly connected to one universe, one planet Earth for us? Yeah, this is a wonderful question. My experience, because I've worked with a lot of people, right? I've looked at a lot of people's history of their souls and all that. And what I found is that we tend to stay around in our neighborhood somewhat. We tend to, because part of the story is cultivating the physiology with consciousness. And this particular part of our galaxy, for example, that we're living in, tends to give rise to particular types of physiologies. It's like learning a musical instrument. If you start learning on a flute and then you think, well, I think I'll switch to a violin, then the learning curve has to start all over again, because you've got a very different type of physiology in a violin than you do in a flute, right? So we are inclined to stay with a particular type of physiology until we at least feel like we've really satisfied and mastered and enjoyed and completed everything we can complete with this physiology. Here comes another. So, however, I've noticed that depending on the intentions of the soul, a person doesn't always just be human like that. Sometimes souls will come back for a rest. Some human lives, you guys. Anybody ever had one of those lives where you feel it's just like a work marathon from the beginning to the end? It never ends. It's like, really, I was saying yesterday, it's the compassion of the Creator that the human life isn't very long, because it's really quite difficult to be human. It's quite difficult, much more difficult than being in a body that's not physical. And so what will happen is sometimes a soul will come back in another form. A soul will come back. I have one girlfriend, I think she might be here. She was here last night. I'm sure that she was an earth deva in her last life. She is such a deva. Oh, she's such a little earth spirit, such a sweet, and she will be again. And we do that for our earth because our earth sustains us as humans, right? Our earth takes care of us. So we all take turns coming in as a human body and then coming in as an energy body form that supports the well-being of Mother Earth, that makes pretty flowers grow up, and that ensures that the water cycle is going along properly, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like, that's sort of like your contribution. This is your contribution. This is your housekeeping contribution, right? So we do that here on Earth. We do that. We be human, and then we go be the deva of a river. And then we come back and we, and you don't have to forever, because rivers are constantly moving anyways, right? So, I mean, it's just, but, we do this. We do this. There are many different kinds of beings in our solar system. And we in human bodies are mostly earth element. I've talked about this quite extensively before, I believe, but there's life in the sun, there's life on Jupiter, there's life everywhere, but they're not corporeal life. It's not like this kind of life, but there's life. Just like Nassim Haramein, when he discovered that fabric was like literally everywhere in the whole universe. It was like, whoa, how interesting is that? But it's like that. It's like every particle of our universe is full of life. And some of the bodies are very, very, they're just Anandamaya Kosh bodies, right? And some of the bodies are more like, more manifest bodies, but they're everywhere, 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 everywhere. Some bodies are made mostly of fire. Those be sun bodies, right? So when the sunshine comes down and hits you, these are like kisses. These are kisses from the sun beings, Oh, thank you. Oh, let's see. Oh, gosh. Okay, right. Okay. So I just gotta, yes. So one person is saying that I just got to note that I've gone over time. And please forgive me, everyone, because I get so wrapped up and I enjoy this so much. I probably should have started on questions earlier. But I do want to address one little teeny question here at the end. And that is a sweet lady saying she's wondering if she's the only one here who's completely lost. Oh, my dearest, I don't feel connection or feel love for myself or joy or pleasure. And I'm always overwhelmed and unable to cope with anything in life. Oh, this is so rough. It's so rough. This experience comes from disconnection to wholeness. We need to find our way back to the silence within everything and with everyone and with all of us. Awareness does it. Awareness really is wholeness. Your awareness, the fact that you're here, I mean, my hat is off to you. What a big step to be here. You're here and your awareness is here. And your awareness is divine source material that you have the autonomy to direct wherever you want. And what a privilege it is for me that you chose and you are directing your awareness here with me today. How beautiful is that? I'm honored. I'm honored. And there's nothing more beautiful and important and valuable to me anywhere in the whole universe. Being in your presence is being in the presence of the divine. Your awareness is divine presence, which you have so generously offered to me. That divine presence never leaves you. Even if you feel separated, or you feel alone, or you feel overwhelmed, unable to cope, it never leaves you. And when your awareness gets off of me, I'm going to stop this workshop pretty soon, this webinar pretty soon, but has an opportunity to turn back on itself. So here's the kicker, here's the key. Awareness turns around and looks at itself. There are 112 ways to do this. You can look at my website. There's an entry in the knowledge base called 112-point matrix. If you search alphabetically, it's the first entry, so real easy to find. Awareness looks at itself. And when it looks at itself, it re-anchors to the eternal ocean of unmanifest, quality-less being that is our origin. Nothing happens and nothing exists in creation that is actually separated from that. It's only that there are moments of feeling separated because the physiology isn't really comfortable to sustain the connection. That's all. So the physiology is part of the story, part of the process, and all efforts should be made. I'm not telling you what you guys are grown up, so I'm not really telling you what you should do, but any efforts that you do make to nurture and balance and cultivate the physiology in a way that's very healthy, right? Like avoiding exposure to toxins and maintaining a balanced routine. You want to look at those three basic things, right? Rest, exercise, and food. Those three fundamentals. And align them with nature's intelligence, right? Nature, like our circadian rhythms. You want to keep the rest and the exercise and the food intake aligned with the circadian rhythms. And then when you get onto routine like that, where that alignment is there, then the nervous system starts to breathe easier. It starts to feel better. It starts to become, it becomes easier for you to handle the experiences that are coming in a way that's gentler. And also another thing that I would recommend to everyone is if you feel that your world, that your universe is coming at you way too fast and you're getting overwhelmed, you can make it slow down. You don't have to put up with that. I mean, look, the universe is evolving anyway, and we have all the time in the universe to get to our goal. So, no rush. No rush. You can say to the universe if it's coming. I told the story, I think yesterday, about wanting to get rid of all the anger in my whole body at once. And like, well, that was such a big mistake. So yeah, you can hear that funny story tomorrow. It's always funny if nobody dies. Anyway, yeah, so you can say to the universe, say to you with your awareness goes to it folds in on its own nature, right? I have awareness and it's usually going this way. And I go, okay, awareness, I'm going to go this way. I'm looking at my awareness is looking at its own awareness. It's looking at itself and say, no rush here, folks. I don't need so much coming at me that I get overwhelmed. I need it to come in digestible chunks based on the condition of my nervous system now. And I promise that I'll try to take really good care of my nervous system so that it gets more robust and more flexible and more stable. And I can take in more tomorrow or the next day. This is the formula. I offer you this formula. So 2 things. Watch the cycle of rest, activity, and diet, and offer the request to your own divine self, to the source of creation within you, which is in you, even if you think it's not within you, it is in you as your own awareness. And just offer the request and say, look, I can't take it this fast. Let's slow things down a little bit. It's no rush. It's no rush ever. We have many lifetimes to do this work. So enjoy the ride the best that you can. And thank you for being with me for this ride, because it really is, for me, a wonderful ride. You can see I forget, and then I just go over time. So I'll try to be more sensitive with everybody's time, though, because I know we're all busy people. It's around the holidays. So may you all have beautiful holidays. I think this is the last one before Christmas, right? Right. Yeah. So I'm wishing happy holidays to everybody who's here. Happy New Year to all of you in 2023. I'll see you again for another webinar in 2023. But in the meantime, I hope everybody gets a chance to enjoy the peace, the deep, deep peace of the height of winter, the depths of winter, the deep silence of winter brings a special kind of peace and a special kind of alignment with universal intelligence, because we have these long nights. And depending on where you are, I spent last winter in Arizona, and the nights weren't really that long, but but here in Iowa, it's a little better. So they're a little longer. And yeah, we get to enjoy the washing. Our physiologies literally are washed with cosmic light. The light from the stars is raining down upon us every day, with more fullness than even the sun. We get more starlight than sunlight this time of year. Yeah, got my girl from Canada raising the hand right there. Yeah, you betcha. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So thank you for being with me, and enjoy the starlight, enjoy the holidays, enjoy the deep peace. It's lovely to be with you guys always. Bye.